Welcome to the Purple Elephant Show. I am your host, KC Phoenix, and today is Sunday. So, September the 13th, I think. I haven't even checked the date. So, Friday was the 11th, Saturday was the 12th. Okay, today's the 13th. It's just been, I've been a little bit busy this morning. I had to go out and run some errands and do some other things. But this episode, this is more of a rant than anything else for those who are listening to the podcast and for those who are watching. I'm trying to figure out, why is everyone being treated, why is one side being treated differently than the other side? And to me, one thing, if you've listened to this show or if you've watched this show, you know I'm real big on classism. And classism can be in different forms. As I've said before, it isn't just rich or poor. It's treating one group differently and better than the other group. Now, recently, it was just found out, as mentioned from the title of this episode, that Robert Mueller's team, they turned their phones back in. And all of the phones were erased. They were erased. Now, for those who are not familiar, anything that is government issued is government property. Anything you do on that government property then becomes property of the government. Almost like if you work at a company and let's say you come up with an idea and you're using the company's laptops or resources or whatever, and you leave the company, but you take the idea and you try to sell it, the company you used to work for actually has rights to your idea because you used their property, because your idea was used on their property. Anything that you do on government or company property, meaning laptops, cell phones, whatever, it then becomes the property of the government. And also, especially in government, things become archived. That is why with servers and other things, it is preferred and pretty much known that you don't erase anything because all of that stuff becomes archived for the government. Now, if all the phones, pretty much every single phone on the Mueller team was erased, the question is, what was on there? The other question is, why aren't immediate charges brought? As soon as they said, oh, well, we accidentally deleted, because that's what Andrew Weissman was talking about. I did something wrong. I accidentally deleted this and they accidentally deleted this. And why wasn't the reply to them, okay, that's fine. You need to lawyer up. That's what should have been done. Charges should have been brought right then and there. As I always say, once is a coincidence, twice is a pattern. This happened, I believe it was 17 times. So clearly, there was a pattern there. And the DOJ just shrugs it off like, oh, okay, whatever. And just President Trump brought it up at his rally or peaceful protest last night with Hillary Clinton. And I'm not one of those people where Hillary Clinton is on my mind every day because it's not that serious. But I will say, with the server situation, there was a subpoena by the United States Congress saying, we need to review these documents. And she then, after receiving the request from them, decided to delete what she felt they didn't need to see, saying it was related to weddings and yoga and whatever else she had said. And said, okay, now you can see it. And the Justice Department is just like, okay, nothing has happened. Just like with the DNC, when the whole Russia thing started, when the DNC said, Russia hacked our server. And the FBI said, oh, well, we need to see it so we can review it and, run testing, diagnostic, do everything we need to do to determine that that was the case. Oh, no, you can't see the server. You're saying no to the FBI? You can say no to the FBI. So if an American citizen goes to the FBI and says, this happened, and the FBI is like, oh, well, we need to investigate your home, or we need to, no, you don't need to do that. I'll go ahead and have a third party. They'll type up a report and let you know what they found. But no, you can't come into my home. The FBI is going to say, no. You brought a case to us. Either we get to see it, or it will become a different type of conversation. I don't understand it. The same thing with Ukraine. Everyone knows that prosecutor was fired because he was investigating the vice president's son, the former vice president's son. That is a fact. Rudy Giuliani had evidence on top of evidence on top of evidence on top of evidence, presenting it to the DOJ saying, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this, showing all of the corruption and everything else that was there. And the Justice Department is just like, Anyone who has truly been following what's been happening with the Russia hoax, knowing about how it was all set up with Alexander Downer, with Fusion GPS, with Perkins Coie, all of that stuff. The list goes on and on. It's a laundry list of things. All of this stuff, Joseph Mifsud, all of this stuff out there. And I know that Durham is doing his thing, and I know the wheels of justice turn slow at times. It's just like, what's really going on? But in the state of New York, the president actually had to change his residence because of what I call malicious prosecution, where they're constantly going after the Trump organization for this and for this and for this and for that. But they didn't go after the Clinton Foundation, which is obvious it's a money laundering scheme. When Hillary Clinton lost the election, the donations to the Clinton Foundation dropped by about 2/3. There are so many things. They're saying that people lied when it comes to process crimes, which happened during the whole Russia hoax investigation with Mueller. All right, well, it's known that John Brennan had lied to Congress too. Where are the charges? Make it make sense. Other people have lied to Congress on the other side. Where are the charges? It just doesn't look good for the Justice Department, where all of these people in one class they get to do whatever they want. Sort of like with Nancy Pelosi going into the salon in San Francisco when all the salons had banned indoor services in San Francisco. But Nancy Pelosi went in. And she says she was set up and they called her. But if you know that indoor services are banned inside the San Francisco salons and they called you, you should have said, hey, indoor services are banned. Let's not do that. If you can send someone to my house, because as I mentioned before, Nancy Pelosi is worth tens of millions of dollars. She has enough money where she can hire someone to come to her house or even rent out a building and do something else or do something outside or whatever. Long story short, she has enough money where she can stay within the guidelines that her party and governor of California have created. But she didn't. And she won't be held accountable. So I'm just looking at all of this stuff and it doesn't look good. People don't have faith in the Justice Department. And I really wish that something would change. I know Bill Barr is doing his best to clean up what he can clean up. He's only one man and is so corrupt that it's going to take years to clean it up. But why is it that one class always suffers and the other class just gets to do whatever they want without any type of consequences whatsoever? If it continues like this, eventually people will just say, hey, if your laws don't include me, they don't apply to me. Or if your laws don't include them, they don't apply to me. That's what I feel eventually will happen, where people are just not, they just won't care anymore. Sort of like what's happening in the state of New York, where they got together to have parties and go out and dance and do other things. And Governor Cuomo was upset because they got together, but he didn't say anything when they were peaceful protesting. It's like, oh, it's fine. Even some nurses and doctors and others were cheering them on as they were peaceful protesting. And the people are like, okay, so we need signs, we need to protest so it won't get us. And by it, you know what I'm talking about. The people aren't buying it. They're like, oh, well, okay. If we could get together then, we can get together now. And as America looks on and sees these things, eventually, and I keep on stressing this, and as I said before, I don't believe there will be a civil war. I believe in my heart of hearts that the majority of America are civilized people. I also believe that people do see things, they observe things, and they're like, well, if it doesn't apply to them, then it must not apply to me. And there's only a few thousand people in Washington, but there's 300 million people in America. Who outnumbers who? So if you can't project, if you can't display a balanced system of justice, these 300 million Americans are going to say the justice system isn't balanced, period. And not in regards to race issues or anything else. This is a classism issue. This is and as I said before, and I mentioned that in my Civil War 2.0 episode, the one thing that I believe might be able to tear America apart is classism. And with this justice system, you can't say one class of people can do whatever they want and let them get away with it. But then this other class of people, just because you don't agree with their politics or their religion or whatever, you bring down the hammer on them. That type of thing won't work because there isn't balance there. There's a reason the Lady of Justice holds a scale, because there has to be balance. And these little things, like turning in the cell phones erased, and there are no consequences. There are no consequences for any of them whatsoever, when there should be. These little things that have been happening are just more things that keep on chipping away at a justice system that is already fragile. Something will have to give soon. Either the justice system will have to balance itself out and treat everyone fairly, or either the whole thing will crumble. So what is it going to be? When I heard that, I'm just like, why aren't there charges? And Durham may bring charges later, or there may be a special counsel that comes along later and does something. But for something so obvious and so flagrant, there shouldn't be a waiting period, is what I'm saying. If you rob a bank, they're not going to say, oh, well, and they know who you are. They're not going to say, oh, well, we'll bring charges in 6 months. We'll do indictments in 6 months. If you rob a bank, they're going to come and get you as soon as possible and say you need to lawyer up. This incident that happened, where it's obvious that something was not adding up, especially because it was more than one occurrence with the erasing of information on cell phones, something should have happened within a 24 to 48 hour period. And it should have happened to also send a message to say, this is not going to work. It's a new day at the Justice Department. Even if they got a week in jail, something should have happened. As soon as they turned those in and said, oh, well, you need an attorney. Something's going to have to give. This stuff keeps on chipping away at the justice system, and it's already fragile because millions of Americans are looking at all of these things that have been happening, and they're seeing the classism, where one class of people are able to do whatever they want, and not be held accountable. And another class of people who don't even do anything have to spend tons of money on attorneys and everything else because the full weight of the government is coming down on them. Or they have done something, but then the government over prosecutes. It's not right. Just like what's going on with General Flynn right now. With General Flynn, this shouldn't even be in court right now with General Flynn. As soon as the appeals court gave the 2-1 decision to throw it out, to throw it all out, Judge Sullivan should have said, okay, that's it. But then, because he knew what he would get if he asked the entire appeals court to review it, which is a 10-judge court instead of a 3-judge. He knew what he would get. He knew he would get the ruling he wanted, even though the ruling was incorrect. Where they're like, oh, no, the case can keep going. The case can keep going with General Flynn. These little things are chipping away at the justice system. Bit by bit, piece by piece. It's not balanced. One class is not being held accountable, while another class is fighting, in some cases, unnecessary battles, or fighting battles that are completely unfair. And something's going to have to give. Because I'm not the only one who sees this. I know millions and millions of other Americans see this. And eventually, those millions and millions and millions of other Americans might say, well, law just doesn't apply to me. What can the government do? Arrest everybody? Arrest all 100 million Americans? It doesn't have the power. And then you have anarchy. All because of classism. Because one class was allowed to be flagrant and not be held accountable for the things they have done. And another class who, whether guilty, innocent, or whatever, the full weight of the government was thrown at them. So something has to give. And that's all I have for this episode of The Purple Elephant Show. ThePurpleElephantShow.com and I was about to say / I'm thinking of Facebook, but ThePurpleElephantShow.com, main podcasting platform. The Purple Elephant Show on Parler, Instagram, Facebook.com / The Purple Elephant Show. Swing by there, give a like. Also on BitChute now, The Purple Elephant Show. And I feel like I'm missing something on Twitter at Real TPES. Thank you for supporting the show, everyone who have been liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing and following. I really appreciate it more than you know. Until next time, be blessed.